all photos until 1990s were racist because of a conspiracy to oppress Negroes in photography. No, seriously, this is what passes for progressive academic analysis these days. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. I've made the unfortunate mistake of clicking a Vox.com article. And not only I did that, but I also clicked on their video and read the entire article. Now, I know that's my fault, but it still gave me cancer. You all out there complaining about my smoking, but decades of smoking don't even come close to giving me the amount of cancer that just one Vox.com article has given me. So there we go. Color film was built for white people. Here's what it did to dark skin. For decades, the color film available to consumers was built for white people. The chemicals coating the film simply weren't adequate to capture a diversity of darker skin tones. And the photo labs established in the 40s and 50s even used an image of a white woman called a Shirley card to calibrate the colors for printing. Concordia University professor Lorna Roth has researched the evolution of skin tone imaging. She explained in a 2009 paper how the older technology distorted the appearance of black subjects. Problems for the African American community, for example, have included reproduction of facial images without details, lightning challenges, and ashen-looking facial skin colors contrasted strikingly with the whites of eyes and teeth. How this would affect non-white people seemingly didn't occur to those who designed and operated the photo systems. In an essay for BuzzFeed, writer and photographer Cyrita McFadden described growing up with film that couldn't record her actual appearance. An essay for BuzzFeed. So we know it's all legit and not full of irrelevant whining. It's not like BuzzFeed is a clickhole or something. Anyway, back to the piece. Many of the technological biases have since been corrected, though not all of them. Still, we often see controversies about misrepresentation of non-white subjects in magazines and advertisements. What are we to make of the fact that these images routinely lighten the skin of women of color? Tools are only as good as the people who use them. The learned preference for lighter skin is ubiquitous in many parts of the world, and it starts early. That's an infinitely tougher problem than improving the color range of photo technology. Now, when we click on the links here on starts and early, what do we get? Oh, we get one study made in the United States and another one also made in the United States. So how exactly do these links prove that the preference for lighter skin is ubiquitous in many parts of the world and it starts early? At best, and this is me being charitable, these links prove that preference for lighter skin is learned and ubiquitous in the United States and it starts early. And that's at best. Their so-called evidence says nothing about Asia, Africa, Europe, South America, or Australia. They are correct in one thing though. There is indeed an almost universal preference for lighter skin, not only in many parts of the world, but all over the world. However, nobody has yet proven that this preference is learned, and if it is learned, how it is learned and when. More to the point, areas of Africa in which nobody had ever seen a white person in early 1900s still held a preference for lighter skin. If it's a learned preference, who taught it to the pure Negroes who hadn't even been aware of the white man's existence? Similar preferences are noted in some other primitive tribes since long before the Europeans even know those areas exist on the planet. Who taught those preferences there? Or a more important question, where does this assumption that this is a learned behavior come from? As I've shown in this video, there are quite a plethora of racist and sexist preferences that virtually all humans have, regardless of race, culture, sex, religion, and whatever. So maybe, just maybe, this assumption that the worldwide preference for lighter skin is a learned behavior comes not from research, but from the prejudices of the overwhelmingly leftist and overwhelmingly social constructivist Western academia? I don't know. Just asking. Look, I don't even have a position on this. It may well be true that the worldwide preference for lighter skin is entirely the fault of Europeans, but so far the evidence for that position is thin. Then that is to say the least. Where I do have a position is the overall narrative of this Vox piece of garbage article and the video. Oh Christ, the video is even worse. Basically, Vox and this academic prick from the Concordia University, a communications professor, what they're saying is that photography itself was racist because it didn't depict Negroes quite right. Yet in their video, they explained that in order to fix that, cameras needed a second computer chip. Am I the only one who knows that there was no such thing as a computer chip in the 1940s when cameras began to be mass-produced? Or at least not the chips that they were needed. Also, do these people even know how a camera works? Because the fact that you have a flash, for instance, changes a lot. And yes, darker objects, that is to say anything that is darker colored, not just non-white people, tend to look worse if the flash isn't calibrated enough. Why? Well, because darker colored objects reflect light more poorly, or don't reflect it at all, whilst lighter colored objects reflect the light better and thus provide a better exposure on the film. This isn't racism, it's 7th grade physics. In their video, they're also whining that things have started changing once opera and other Negro-oriented entertainment became a thing, and also once some furniture manufacturer complained. The inference being, of course, that the procedures and the producers of cameras didn't give a flying toss about the fact that Negroes were not captured well on camera, and they didn't care because they were racists. Well, how about this alternate explanation? Cameras used to be bloody expensive. Most whites and most blacks couldn't afford a colored camera for many years, but most of those who could afford tended to be lighter skinned. As such, very few complaints even got to the ears of the producers in the first place. Now, my explanation is far more reasonable and more in line with reality, but you see, my explanation is not good because it's not progressive, and it undercuts the leftist academician's ability to whip up some more racialist agitprop. But what pissed me off the most was their ending of the video. Just watch.
If a child is born into a society where all of the range of skin tones is the obvious norm, then they can no longer assume that whiteness is default.
Jesus Christ. You see, this is the kind of shit that gives ammunition to the real racists out there. Do you fucking retards even realize what you're doing? You're whipping out genuine racial hatred. It becomes increasingly hard to deny that anti-racism is just code word for anti-white as long as you're pulling shit like this. Because it's shit like this that may eventually lead to real racial hatred. Because let's be clear, nobody tries to make a Nigerian kid grow up in Nigeria to see all skin tones as the norm so that he no longer thinks black is the default. And most definitely nobody tries to push this shit in Japan or in South Korea. It's okay for Asians to grow up thinking that Asian is the default, just not okay for whites. Have you played earlier versions of Pro Evolution Soccer? Virtually all players, football players I mean, they look Asian in that game. And it makes sense. When technology is limiting, you revert to the default of your own, and in the case of Konami's Pro Evolution, that is Japanese. Yet when both economic and technological constraints create a similar situation for a limited period of time in a white majority area, that's suddenly a problem that needs to be solved by filling up the place with as many non-whites as possible. Because heaven forbid, a camera is imperfect and that needs to be solved not by actually working more on the design, but by changing the entire ethnic structure of the entire society. Seriously, progressives, If you would be at least 1% as anti-racist as you claim you are, you wouldn't be publishing most of the nonsense that you currently publish in the academe, the progressive media complex, and everywhere else. Maybe, just maybe, sometimes a lighter is just a lighter and a cigar is just a cigar. You're so mired up into your racialist framework that you're seeing racism in the same way that believers in aliens see abductions everywhere. Take a look under your bed. Maybe there's some racism there. I mean, it's dark under the bed, so surely it has to be some racial angle to that. Fucking plebs. That's all I gotta say. Thanks for watching.
Until you place money up inside of the bank.
Live this way, morning, night, and day. Maybe
'Cause I'm a